Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Today, we're continuing our coverage of Alliance Insight's new cards with a theme I thought we'd never get to look at. As part of my continuing series of videos covering all the 5D's Signer Duelists, a quick reminder, 75k subscribers is Blackwings, tell your friends, Leo got a whole section covering his Morphtronics and the Power Tools monsters that accompanied them. But because Luna never got much of a dedicated deck in the anime, it felt far-fetched to try and hold out hope that we would eventually get some kind of dedicated support. So we gave them a little section for Ancient Fairy Dragon and all the other cards that Luna played during the anime. But during reveal season for this set, I was pleasantly surprised to see that the designers had not forgotten about her. That's right, the real reason Ancient Fairy Dragon got an errata and was allowed to roam the lands once more was because a signer who had never properly been represented in the game would finally get their chance in the spotlight. But how in the world do we combine field spell cycling, vague equip spell synergies, and punishing attacks? Well, as it turns out, the answer ended up being very interesting and flavorful. So get ready to delve deep into the world of spirits with Luna's fairy cards explained. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons, as well as the wonderful people over at Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. So, having previously been a pile of unrelated nonsense, what's the deal with Luna's new cards? Well, we still don't have a proper archetypal name. Saying they're the fairy monsters doesn't seem to have quite the right punch to it. However, they are all light attribute monsters, with our main deck ones being beast, fairy, or plant type, something many of our effects check for in terms of compatibility. You'll notice a distinct lack of dragon in that list, but many of our cards will name Ancient Fairy Dragon by name to incorporate them into the effects. Overall, the cards are looking to turbo out our new version of Ancient Fairy Dragon, which unlocks a super heavy samurai style of play, letting us attack while in defense position, which is good because we have a number of effects that punish attack position monsters, which is a pretty nifty way of translating Ancient Forest's old theming of outlawing fighting by just only disallowing certain kinds of fighting, that kind being the way your opponent does it, not us. Now, many of these cards are retrains of older ones, but because they've already had their chance in a video, I'm going to refrain from covering them. If you want to see what base Regulus does, got the link right up here for you. Not only does it talk about Luna's old cards and has some pretty good coverage of Morphtronics, turns out one of the best ways you can help support creators that you like on YouTube right now is making sure you see a second one of their videos after a first one. Helps to keep the recommendations in your homepage, fun little behind the scenes fact. However, if you're just looking at the core set of releases that we get in Alliance Insight, you're actually missing out on a whole other batch of cards that released in the OCG's 2025 Premium Pack, which are cards used by Luna in the 5D's manga. They were used by Leo, who was taking orders from Luna while both of them were possessed by dual dragons, because in that universe, the dragons are malevolent creatures sometimes, or something. You know, the manga may not be any more or less weird than the anime is in a vacuum, but if you're invested in how the anime story goes, the manga is truly outrageous. I still can't believe that Jesse Anderson is an insect duelist in the GX manga. First up, we have Kuribon the Fairy Spirit, a level 1 fairy monster with 300 attack and 200 defense. If you control Ancient Fairy Dragon or a light beast, plant, or fairy monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, it's treated as a tuner. If another Ancient Fairy Dragon or any number of monsters that mention it that you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can return this card from the field to the hand instead. A nod to how the contender for worst card ever, Kuribon, would bounce back to your hand to negate an attack, along with other horrid things. This newer version is vastly more playable, hitting the field as a quick tuner you can use for synchro summoning, or to access your link monsters if you've avoided any kind of lock. The protect effect can also help to ensure your on-theme monsters don't get borked by your opponent, but I believe the intended usage is, if you're playing under your own Ancient Forest or World of Spirits, cards that blow up either attacking or attack position monsters, Kuribon effectively lets you play under those, saving all of them in one fell swoop with that destruction replacement effect. Overall, it's a vast improvement on the original, but the bar for that was so low that you've got earthworms clearing it. It's not exactly an impressive feat. Though I'm happy to see that the Fairy Spirit is keeping in line with spirit monsters bouncing back to your hand all the time. That was a nice touch. Spore the Fairy Cell is a level 1 light plant tuner monster with 400 attack and 800 defense. And if this card is special summoned, you can increase its level by up to the number of monsters that you control. If this card is in your grave and you control Ancient Fairy Dragon or a light beast, plant, or fairy monster, you can special summon this card. Also, you can't special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except synchro monsters. Ah, well, we couldn't expect to have unconditional extra deck access forever, I guess. This is as good a time as any to bring up again that yes, despite being a plant monster in the age where we had a plant duelist, and it being probably the most iconic and powerful plant monster in the synchro sphere, Spore is not an Akiza card. It was a Luna card. And while this iteration isn't quite so busted, at least we can use it more than once per duel. We'll want to vent this card into the graveyard as soon as possible, because once we do, it's ready to help make a quick and easy synchro monster. Because if you have just one other monster, you can bring this out and increase its level by 2. Counting itself and the other monster you control, making this a level 3 tuner. And if the monster you had on board beforehand was a level 4 monster, then congratulations, you just got Ancient Fairy Dragon access. Something you can do turn after turn because for some unknown reason I will not be interrogating, this card does not banish itself after its self-revival. And because you can increase the level by up to the number of monsters that you control, you'll never be punished for committing too many monsters to the board, because you can always just choose a lesser number for the level gain effect. And while you're restricted to making only synchros on the turn you revive it from the graveyard, at least for the rest of the turn after you revive it, you can make whatever synchro you want. Whatever unhinged playline your combo gremlin mind can think of, Spore Cell has you covered. Which is just the kind of thing I would expect from these little puff balls that go around looking like this all the time. It is an immutable fact of the universe that anyone that walks around with little kitty faces on them like this are either precious beans, a malevolent trickster deity, or someone who oscillates wildly between the two, and I should know. I'm one of those people. Regulus, the Fairy Beast, is a level 4 beast monster with 1700 attack and 1000 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a spell or trap card that mentions Ancient Fairy Dragon from your deck to your hand. During your main phase, you can special summon a level 4 or lower light beast, plant, or fairy monster from your hand in defense position, and you can banish this card from your grave, then target a field spell card in your grave to place it on the bottom of the deck, then draw a card. A field spell that you will be seeing pretty soon, since fetching field spells is Ancient Fairy Dragon's whole shtick. The main draw here is getting our hands on our specific support spell and trap cards, and trust me, what we have on offer is unreal. Not to mention that this single-handedly turbos out your whole engine. This card works best with Spore Cell, as that monster doesn't have a way to special summon itself from the hand. And once you do so with Regulus, it sets you up for a level 7 synchro summon. And because we have a spell we can nab off of Regulus that searches other monsters of our theme, this is basically a one-card combo. This will be the card you want to see most in your opening hands. But, you know, just do your best to keep the typing straight here. Sadly, despite the name, Regulus cannot be both a fairy and a beast monster. Somehow this game has been going so long and it still hasn't managed to do something that first-gen Pokemon was accomplishing. When are we getting the multi-types, Konami? The World of Spirits is a field spell card that, when activated, lets you add a monster that mentions Ancient Fairy Dragon from your deck to your hand. Each time any number of monsters are special summoned in attack position, change them to defense position, and once per turn, during the end phase, destroy all the turn player's attack position monsters. You can only activate one copy of this card per turn, and the position changing effects and the destruction effect can only be activated while you control a level 7 or higher light dragon synchro monster. This prevents your opponent from leveraging their non-link monsters for combat purposes right out of the gate, and even though this affects your monsters too, it works in our favor. And honestly, they should be thanking us, because if they are in attack position, their monsters get exploded. Sorry Lynx, you're just gonna have to deal with it. And because it's searchable by Regulus, you can normal summon it, use their on summon effect to get you World of Spirits, activate it, put Spore Cell in your hand, use Regulus's effect to summon it out of your hand, and there you go, that's Ancient Fairy Dragon. From this point, you can trade out World of Spirits for any other field spell that you want, and now Spore Cell's in the grave for follow-ups, which will help us get into our new Ancient Fairy Dragon monster. As a follow-up to Ancient Forest, this succeeds on all marks, punishing attack position monsters while giving you the edge, with a little consistency booster to help smooth things over and make combos possible. Can't wait to see what the rest of these little creatures get up to once they get the fairy treatment. I need Wadapon and its no thoughts head empty energy in this archetype right now. Eternal Sunshine is a continuous trap card that increases the defense of monsters you control for each Ancient Fairy Dragon and all monsters that mention it that you control. Once per chain, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and until the end of the turn, its current attack and defense become halved, also its effects are negated. And you can use this effect a number of times per turn, up to the number of Ancient Fairy Dragon and monsters that mention it that you control. This card is unbelievable. The defense bonus is pretty snazzy, but the main draw is the fact that you've got what amounts to multiple Lost Winds attached to a single card. It really rewards you for going as wide as possible, not only giving you more activations of this, but if you can get a full field of 6 of these, you're looking at 3,000 defense each. And remember, we're going to get defense attacking capabilities real soon. But even having just 3 gives a 1500 defense boost to all of them, and that's really gnarly. And because of how searchable it is, you can count on having access to this at most times, letting you use Eternal Sunshine to leave your opponent's monsters with a spotless mind. Alright, now it's time to cover Luna's manga cards. While these are all technically compatible with the cards we've talked about so far, they have their own little sub-theme that works specifically for them. A field spell that we'll go over right now so we have all the context we need. Fairy Tale Prologue Journey's Dawn is a field spell that halves any battle damage any player takes. If you control a light beast monster or a level 7 or 8 dragon synchro monster, you can draw a card. And during your standby phase, you can send this card from the field to the grave to place a field spell from your hand or deck face up in your field zone. Our next 2 monsters care very much about having this card active, and thankfully it gives you a little draw bonus for committing them to the board, though sadly doesn't work with our fairy or plant monsters. It also morphs into any field spell from your hand or deck on a new turn when you're done with it. So you can set it up to keep your life points safe from attacks during your opponent's turn, then swap it back during your own turn so that your opponent starts taking full damage again. It's very sinister, which once again, if you know a little beam of sunshine like this, you know they're a mass of pure, unadulterated evil. This sun has seen the depths of human depravity and will not stop until we are taking a dunk in it. Enjoy! Bat, the Forest Ninja, is a level 3 beast tuner monster with 800 attack and defense. If a face-up card is in the field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can only special summon copies of this card once per turn this way. If this card is normal or special summoned, and Fairy Tale Prologue Journey's Dawn is on your field or in your grave, you can add a light beast monster from your deck to your hand. This is an alternative tuner to deploy beside Spore Cell alongside Regulus to access Ancient Fairy Dragon. And while the field spell is in rotation, it even gets you a free monster to boot. Or you could do it in reverse. With Journey's Dawn active, without using your normal summon, you can nab Regulus and do the whole 1-card combo from there. And with Journey's Dawn, you even get a draw out of it. And even outside our own theme, we have some great light beast monsters to work with. The Fabled are ready to be discarded for a free summon, and it also gets the Pyramid of Light Sphinxes if you want to be really cheesy. But there is one archetype of monsters that you should, under no circumstances, ever search with this effect, no matter how tempting it might be. As a personal favor to me, do not even think about using these effects to search out Ojamas. If I see any of you make a Luna Ojama deck, your lives will be forfeit. I will be rapidly approaching your location. I will be filling up your monster zones. I'll give you a taste of your own medicine. You will know that you will not see the light of God. Wonko, Noble Knight of the Forest, is a level 4 beast monster with 1100 attack and 1600 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a copy of Fairy Tale Prologue Journey's Dawn from your deck to your hand. Or, if that card is already on the field or in the graveyard, you can draw a card instead. While a card is in the field zone, your opponent's monsters can't target monsters for attacks except this one. And when this card is destroyed by battle, you can make the monster that destroyed it lose 500 attack. That's right, we're bringing out the rigorous Reaver effects in the 2020s. We've got a pretty outrageous draw engine going on here, getting one from Wonko and the field spell that it searches, so you can really dig through your cards. Now, the attack redirect effect isn't my favorite, but thankfully, even though they don't mention Ancient Fairy Dragon on them, they can still benefit from the defense boost provided by Eternal Sunshine, even if they can't contribute to the boost that it provides. This can help keep your smaller monsters safe while you develop your board, though it would have been a lot nicer if we would have been able to attack with this. 1600 as a base means that only one boost puts this at 21, so it's a fairly formidable blocker. But hey, what are you gonna do? Another light beast that can help you dig for your field spell in a deck that transmutes them is a godsend, and I can't wait to see what future Fairy Tale field spells will do. Or at least I expect we'll get more. I haven't read the manga, but it's called a prologue. There's gotta be more chapters after that. The publisher won't stand for anything less. Honestly, what gets me is that we somehow dropped Stealth Ninja and Noble Knight support with the Luna cards, because both of them are technically part of those archetypes. How do they plan this stuff out? That does it for all our main deck cards. Now it's time for our signature synchros. Ancient Fairy Dragon is a level 7 light dragon synchro monster with 2100 attack and 3000 defense, requiring generic materials. During your main phase, you can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your hand, and you can't conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. During your main phase, you can destroy as many cards in the field zones as possible, minimum 1, and if you do, gain 1000 life points. Then you can add a field spell with a different name than the destroyed cards from your deck to your hand, and you can only use each effect of this card's name once per turn, which I don't normally point out, but is important for the context of this card specifically, because the pre-errata version of this card did not have that restriction. It was all instead a soft once per turn, meaning a number of decks looking to exploit this card's power would run 3 of them and find ways to sink them off, making room for more Ancient Fairy Dragons in their wake. This gave them access to a number of field spell activations per turn, a lot of life points, and the ability to deploy engine monsters from the hand with impunity. But now, you only get to do that once, no matter how many Ancient Fairy Dragons you summon. And while I normally scoff at the idea of errataing a powerful monster to bring it in line with more modern standards, this is one of the rare versions I don't quite mind so much, making this less of a format boogeyman without ruining the functionality or flavor of the card itself. And even with a single activation, this card still puts in a lot of work, and has seen a lot of experimentation in any deck that uses field spells and has tuner access. It certainly earned its place as one of the more terrifying Signer Dragons in the history of the game, even if it wasn't the most adept at combat. But the only people that can call this ancient are Zoomers. I mean, this card came out in 2009, it's not even out of high school yet! Ancient Pixie Dragon is a level 7 Dark Dragon Synchro monster with 2100 attack and 3000 defense, requiring generic material. After resolving a field spell card that was activated during your turn, draw a card. And once per turn, you can target a face-up attack position monster on the field and destroy that target, but there must be a face-up field spell card on the field to activate and resolve this effect. That's right, it's Ancient Fairy Dragon, but evil! It certainly lets you be a lot more aggressive, giving you more monster removal, and it even keeps to the theme of punishing attack position monsters. And you get a draw once per turn when you activate a field spell, turning them essentially into cantrips, which I really like. Though we are gaining that at the cost of transmuting any field spell into another one, which is what I feel made the original absolutely busted. But don't get cute trying to trigger that draw effect during your opponent's turn with cards like Metaverse or Demise of the Land, because they've surprisingly future-proofed this. However, because it's a dark attribute monster, and because it doesn't have Ancient Fairy Dragon anywhere in its text, it doesn't really play nice with the rest of our theme. Maybe if you need some quick advantage on your way up the synchro ladder, this can provide it for you, but as part of the whole package, this card is just okay. In fact, it's so okay that it's perhaps probably the most enduring example of the word mid. In fact, between playing this card and our new card, you could say we have a mid-life crisis. You'll get the joke in a second. Ancient Fairy Life Dragon is a level 8 light synchro dragon monster with 2500 attack and 3300 defense, requiring generic material. If this card is synchro summoned, you can draw a card, or if the World of Spirits is on the field, add a light beast, plant or fairy monster, or a copy of Eternal Sunshine from your deck to your hand instead. And while on the field, your Ancient Fairy Dragons and monsters that mention it can attack while in face-up defense position, and if you do, apply their defense for damage calculation. Here's our new boss monster, and we've finally unveiled our defense attacking shenanigans. And with Regulus, it's absurdly easy to deploy. Just use the one-card combo we talked about earlier, ending on an Ancient Fairy Dragon on board and a Spore Cell in your graveyard. Revive that Spore Cell, then presto, that's a level 7 Ancient Fairy Dragon and a level 1 tuner. Now this also makes Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, but Life Dragon gets you that search, because we'll have the World of Spirits active at that time, and while we don't need any more setup monster-wise, being able to grab Eternal Sunshine means your negate is online, and it already makes Life Dragon a 3800 defensive monster right off the cuff. From here, you can just keep reviving Spore and Karibo, maybe get the occasional Regulus, and with the boost from Eternal Sunshine, you can leverage them into a mighty fighting force, all while stalling out your opponent with your lose one turn-esque field spell. It's a really cool way to spin the existing cards, and now, I can't wait to see how Ancient Fairy Lifestream Dragon comes about. Mark my words, they didn't name it like that just to not have a crossover monster. Alright, so that's all of Luna's cards, but what do we do with them? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Make Ancient Fairy Life Dragon, go wide, punch face, doesn't get much simpler than that. But the problem is that it's almost too simple. With our archetype consisting of monsters that just refer to Ancient Fairy Dragon, our pool of support is very shallow until more cards get introduced. So instead, we have to look at any light beast, plant, or fairy card we can use, or that could benefit from a little Spirit Force nonsense, and see how they mesh together. So what can we play to help them out? First up, we've got to talk about a little promo that released alongside these cards to give them a little extra oomph. Ukanamitsune no Tamayura, which just so happens to be a level 3 light beast tuner monster, a lineup that is music to my ears. You can special summon it from your hand if you control a level 4 or lower light beast, plant, or fairy monster, and if used as synchro material, the resulting monster gains 2 lingering effects, gains 500 defense, and your opponent can't target that monster with card effects while in defense position. This is probably best used with Life Dragon to make it even more imposing, and you give it some targeting protection to ensure the effects go through. Which is doubly important for this one because without its effect, you can't really attack with all your defense position monsters. Wouldn't want Imperm to get in the way of that. The problem is that it doesn't fit cleanly into the play line we've already established, and without a level 5 monster, using it with Tamayura here isn't super viable. Heck, even its own summoning condition implies it only wants to see level 4 or lower monsters, not higher. But hey, making a regular Ancient Fairy Dragon with these traits isn't half bad either, so I'll let it slide. Overall, outrageous pick, glad we have access to it. Having pawed through all the light beast, plant, and fairy monsters in the game, there's not really a lot to recommend here, at least not ones that don't already have their own infrastructure built in. For instance, light fairies have been a common staple of the game since forever, and because of that it's pretty well-worn territory. While agents have their own thing going on, Venus, the agent of creation, has been passed around to a number of decks since they were created, and for good reason. Being able to pay 1500 life points to generate 3 free material is pretty good, and paying 2000 life points to do that while baiting out an opponent's Ash Blossom and teaching your opponent an important lesson is even better. Now, while the Shine Balls are normally used to make rank 2 Xyz monsters, there's nothing stopping you from using them as synchro material, giving you a wide variety of levels to choose from to broaden your options. And yeah, as a light fairy it combos with basically everything. While it's on the field, you can summon Spore Cell from graveyard, you can summon Tamayura from hand, or you can even summon Venus from your hand using Regulus's effect. Venus can help you create a work of art. While I normally advocate for this in decks that focus on Xyz summoning, Sakitama is itself a light fairy monster that doesn't consume your normal summon to put it on board. While new Regulus is a 1-card Ancient Fairy Life Dragon, Sakitama and Spore Cell accomplishes something similar, though it doesn't give you the field spell like the 1-card Regulus version, but does make for a neat backup. And if you have another field spell you want to pivot through, you can still make Ancient Fairy Dragon and then turn that field spell into the World of Spirits. While Spore Cell can lock us out of the extra deck for anything except synchros, there's a certain other blue card that doesn't worry as much about those details. And while they specialize more in light warrior and dragon monsters, Voiceless Voice has a very important light fairy in low, which provides some great power and negation. Just be careful if you have World of Spirits set up on the field though. The new Skull Guardian can withstand a lot of stuff, but not that. Though 2500 is a pretty decent defense stat. Now, one of the synchro monsters I'm most looking forward to running in this is Ancient Sacred Wyvern. We're absolutely flush with the amount of light attribute tuners we need to make this, and does a fantastic job of closing out games. For those of you not in the know, while you have higher life points, this card gains attack equal to the difference, though it does lose attack equal to the difference if your life points are lower, so keep an eye on where you're at for that. And if destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, it can be revived with a cool 1000 life point cost. What makes it extra special is that it makes all of the little life point boosts you gain from Ancient Fairy Dragon's field swapping effect actually matter. It's kind of like the opposite dragon to Ancient Fairy Dragon in that regard, with the benevolent protector of the spirit world supporting your plays and running defense, while the Sacred Wyvern is here to tear your opponent's face off. Kaijus are a pretty funny inclusion as well to get rid of problem monsters. Normally you'd play Gameciel due to it being the weakest attack position monster, but with the World of Spirits active, the position shift effect makes it the worst to summon. Instead, try giving them Dogoron, because once it shifts to defense position, it's only got 1200, and if need be, can provide a lot of levels for your own synchro summons. As for a silly tech pick, well, I have been comparing them to Super Heavy Samurai this whole time, so why not keep it going? If you need to make a big synchro, Brave Masarawo is a huge body that provides some fantastic draw power, but the biggest draw is the synchro engine provided by Wakaushi. So long as you don't use the monster effect, you can essentially get the material you need for any level 8 synchro monster without the need for your normal summon, which can include Ancient Fairy Life Dragon. Even if the field spell isn't online, you still get a nifty draw, not to mention that this sets up a pendulum scale, giving you more ways to dump cards out of your hand. You even have ways to get spells out of your graveyard. Well, field spells specifically. If you blow up any with Ancient Fairy Dragon and they're left in the graveyard, use Spirit Regulus's effect from the graveyard to put that field spell back into your deck. And while not all the super heavies can attack while in defense position, the ones that matter do. And while they're not able to contribute to increasing Eternal Sunshine's defense boost or their negate, they sure as hell will benefit from the boost themselves. And that's all I've got to say about Luna's new cards. I'm looking forward to seeing how this theme evolves, because there are still plenty of cards we can pull from, and I think the biggest thing the theme is missing is just a bigger roster. Sunlight Unicorn and Sunny Pixie feel like shoo-ins for future retrains, and there are a ton of Fairy Tail Forest cards left from the manga to bring in, especially after all the time Luna's been snubbed from any kind of actual paper representation. It's not necessarily an earth-shattering form of play, but is implemented in a way that keeps making it flavorful and interesting. And while it's not going to be claiming any big competitive success in the future, I feel, it is something I appreciate in the craft regardless. In fact, I very much prefer it that way. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are you looking forward to smashing your opponent with big butts, or are you wishing they weren't so light on playables? And which one's your favorite? Regulus has some strange proportions in the art, but I do love how smug they are, so I'll give it a pass. Let me know your favorites down below, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and be sure to share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and get 5% off your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Upstairs Media and the Critic of Innocence, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, 50 Gigabytes, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Battle Axe, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Copperbottom, Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Green Knight, Great Big Pillock, Hairbear, Happy Majin, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Carp, Marion James E. Picata, Millennia Asta, Muse Clark, Neon Yaminair, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Bat Boos, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, Thievery Coast and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders Ally Vatnia, Animasta, Anthrak, Baron von Titty Sprinkles, Beelzebub, Fish, Beluga Masta, Blitzwolf, Charlie Mercury, Chaz Ghost, Dr. Entity RIP, Aaron the World Breaker, Eva Padilla, Gary Lickbread, Hike Boyagian, Herbal D, Inblink, Kale the Dragon, Lobomaru02, Manga Pages, Matt Simmons, Natiel Lee Alexander, Nitromo, Not Al Gore, Nyx, Obsidian, Rainer Leong, Rhyme Kairos, Schwinny, Shizuka Nijimura, Sir Knight JCB, Sophie, apparently, Sphilia, Stephen Williamson, The Legendary Raven, The Phantom Knights of Shitted Pants, The Gene, Tiger X2476, Weasel King of Weaseltown, and Zaldareka, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you'd like to see how Luna's brother played, check out this video covering all of Leo's cards. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.